Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Robert SK for Drimax School of Photography, and in this video I'm going to be sharing with you guys how I do my full editing from color grading to retouching to dodge and burn up to my final output. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please consider subscribing and leave a comment in the comment section below. Give this video a thumbs up in case you like it, and tell me what you want me to be teaching about in the next videos. Don't forget to turn on the notification icon in order not to miss out every time I upload a new video. So without further ado, let's dive into the video. Let's get started. My video today, I'm working on I'm going to be editing this model. She's a sister of mine. She's called Barbara Semper Chelsea Queen. I will leave the link to her social media accounts in the description below, and I will leave for you the image in the description so that you can follow as we go along. Yes, I'm going to start with Capture One. Capture One is a raw processing software that I use to color grade my images. So this is the image I'm going to be working on. Just like you can see, reduce the lightness a little bit, the highlights, reduce the whites a little bit, reduce the blacks in order to have some contrast. Yes, I'm going to pump up the shadows a little bit, add some clarity and structure to sharpen my image. Also deal with the levels. Yeah, go down the highlights from up here. Yes, work with the curves. Go to this icon, you're going to do some color grading. The advantage with Capture One is that you can work on the skin tones alone, and you give them the kind of feel that you want. Yes, something like that. I go to advanced. I want to deal with this, with the yellows here a little bit, not so much. The magentas as well, and the blues, not so much. Yes, then we go to color balance here. The advantage with color balance in Capture One is that you can work with color wheels, just like the new versions of Lightroom. If you use Adobe Lightroom for raw processing, I'll give my shadows a little bit of blues. I'll put my midtones to a little bit of oranges, and I reduce the light a little bit here. Put my highlights to oranges as well. increase the light just right there. Let me show you a little bit of the before and the after. That is our before, that is the after. This is before and after. So after working on my color grading and lighting, I'll have to I'll send this image to Photoshop. I'm going to be working with Photoshop 2020 for this video, but let me first remove the noise a little bit. I come here to this details option and come to luminance here, and I reduce the noise and I sharpen it a little bit. Yes, just like that. So in order to send it to Photoshop, what we are going to do, you come here and right click and you say edit with Adobe Photoshop 2020. Then I'm going to send in the PSD format. I have to put it to 8-bit. My color profile is supposed to be like that. Resolution, since it's just for posting purposes, let me put the resolution to 75. The scale is supposed to be fixed. I won't put any adjustments, and I click on edit variant, just like you see here. So we are going to start with our retouching. Yes, let me first put it to the crop dimensions that I want, just like that. So the method we are going to use for editing is called frequency separation. Frequency separation, just like in other videos I've been talking about, it is a method of separating skin tones from texture, so that you can work with the skin tones alone while retouching and the texture alone. So that is a method that we are going to use. So in order to do that, you're going to duplicate this background here, this background layer. You click on duplicate. I'll name this layer skin tones, just like that. I come to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. So this is where the trick is. When you come to Gaussian blur here, the value that you feed into this, the value of the radius that you feed into this, is the value that will determine the output, the texture that you will have on your final image. If you have, if your figure is very low, around 1, 2, 3, depending on which camera that you used, you will have a smooth image after editing. But if your figure is around 5, 6, if you keep it up, depending on your image, you will have, if you keep it a little bit high, you will have an image rich in texture after editing. So I'm going to drag this to a point where my blur will disappear. That is the point that you need, depending on which camera. The camera I used is a 45 megapixel camera, so I'll need to push it up a little bit in order to blur out all the details. So I'm going to leave it at around 7. 7 is okay. Then you click OK. After clicking OK, what we did here is we remove the texture of this layer, so that remain with only the skin tones. So what I'm going to do next, I come back to my background layer, I click on it and set duplicate. So now I'm going to name this layer skin texture. Let me name it texture. Click OK, and I move this layer up just like that. So the next thing I'm going to do is remove texture of the skin tones layer. So to do that, I come to image here, I click on apply image. My source will be that the layer I'm going to remove the texture from is the skin tones. and my blending mode will be subtract, since I'm subtracting texture of the skin tones layer. The channel will be RGB, opacity 100 since I'm removing. The opacity will be 100 since I'm removing all the texture from the skin tones layer. I'll keep my scale to the maximum. My minimum scale is supposed to be 1, according to those who studied geography and maps. Minimum scale is 1 and maximum scale is 2. So I'll keep my scale to maximum in order to remove everything to do with the texture, and I'll keep my offset at 128. We'll keep our offset at 128 since the value of the neutral gray of the value of the neutral RGB is 128. Let me show you something here, just for study purposes. When I click on this, the maximum value of R is 25. You see? When I click on R on red here, the maximum value is 255. Sorry. When I come to green, the maximum value of green will be 255, and when I come to blue, the maximum value of blue will be 255. So the maximum value of all those colors is 255, just like you see there. And the minimum value of that is 0. So when you're removing the texture, you have to find a point where all these values meet. The point where all those values meet is around 128. 128 is between 0 and 255, putting 0 into consideration. So that is a reason as to why we keep that at 128. So let's go back and remove our texture. So I was saying, you come to image, apply image, our layer there, blending mode, subtract, offset 128 and scale 2. So you click on OK, just like that. The layer is supposed to be skin tones. So let's remove our texture. We come to image and click on apply image. Our source is that, our layer is supposed to be skin tones, channel is supposed to be RGB, blending mode is subtract, opacity 100, scale 2 and offset 128. Just like that, you click OK. When you click OK, you will see that all you have here is the texture now. All the color is gone, all the skin tones are gone, and we have the texture alone. If I remove these layers, you'll find that I have the texture alone. But in order to bring back our image, you have to change this layer blending mode to linear light in order to retain the texture. At the same time, you have our image. So what we do next is we group these layers, and I'm going to name this frequency separation. Yes, just like that. After naming that frequency separation, I want to show you something here. When I unsee this group, you'll find that there won't be any change in our image, and when I see it, you'll find that there is no change. And when I unsee this skin tones layer, you'll see that I have a lot of texture. When I unsee this, you'll find that I have a lot of color. Let me do that when I'm removing off this, when I'm unseeing the background layer. When I remove this, you will see that I have the texture alone. And when I remove this, you will see that I have the blurry kind of skin tone effect alone. So that means these two layers combined make this background layer. So what we did is we split it into two, skin tones alone and texture alone. Just like an example of music, you will find that you can separate the instrumentals from the vocals or from the voices. That is the same thing that we did here. We separated the skin tones or the color and the texture. So we are going to be working with the skin tones alone when we are retouching, and the color and the texture alone. So the method we are going to use is the lasso tool method. So we come to the lasso tool, we keep our feather at around 18, 19, 20 depending, and we select the skin tones layer here. So let's start blending our skin tones. You draw a selection like that, and you come to filter here, blur and Gaussian blur. So what we are going to do here, we are going to move this radius until we find that our image is fine, our skin tones are blending. So I think 27 is okay. So you go on doing that on all parts of the skin. You go on doing that on all parts of the skin. You go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. You select this cheek area as well. Just like that. So when you're working on the nose area, in order not to remove it, in order not to put it out of shape, you reduce the radius a little bit. You work around the eyes, just like you see there. You have to make sure you work on every bit of the image. I'm not going to remove the dimples. Yes, work on the neck area as well. Just like you see there. If you haven't watched my other videos about frequency separation, you should go and watch them. They have detailed information about how we do this. I'll leave the links up here for you guys to see. I have a tutorial about the lasso tool method and the mixer brush method. Make sure you go and check out those videos. And if you have reached this far without subscribing to this channel, please subscribe and turn on that bell in order not to miss out on the future tutorials. Yes, now that I'm done blending, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the texture alone. I'm going to be editing the texture now. You select the texture here, the texture layer, and the tool I'm going to be using is the clone stamp tool. You make sure you have your opacity at 100, flow at 100, and your sample at current layer for that reason. Then when you right click, you will have to make sure that you select a soft round brush, this one, and your hardness is supposed to be at 0. So now when you're working, the technique we are going to be using here is copy and paste. We copy the good area and paste on where there is a pimple or a blemish. So you hold down your options key if you're using Mac, or your alt key if you're using Windows. You click on a good area, you release the alt key and click on the pimple, just like that, just like you see here. You click on the good area and click on the bad area, just like that. You alt click and paste, you alt click and paste, you alt click and paste. in order to work on the texture very well. Just like you see what I'm doing here. You have to make sure you remove all the pimples from her face, all the blemishes. This method can also help you remove these stretch marks. For example, these ones under the eye, you don't remove all of them, you just remove a few, but you leave it natural, just like you see there. And put in mind that whenever you're working with this method of removing the blemishes, you don't remove the natural birthmarks. For example, some spots are natural birthmarks. You don't have to remove them. You only remove those temporary kind of pimples and blemishes in order not to change the identity of the person. Yes, you have to remove all that. Even here, the neck area, you have to work on it. The chest area, just like you see there. Yes, I think we are done with the texture. Just like you can see, let me show you a little bit of the before and the after. This is the before and after. This is where our image started from, and this is where we are now, just like you can see there. Yes, I think we are done retouching. So now what we are going to do is fix a little bit of what we need to fix in the image. First of all, we are going to work on the eyes. We are going to be working on the eyes, remove that redness, the teeth. We are going to work on the makeup. We are going to do a little bit of the Liquify to shape the body a little bit and darken the hair. I also work on the skin tones. I'll put some LUTs in order to amplify my skin tones. I'll be showing you guys as we go on. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to shape the lighting. We're going to shape the lighting of the face using micro dodge and burn, and I'll show you guys how we do that. That is our next step. So when you're doing dodge and burn, what you do is you come here to create a new curves adjustment layer, just like that. Then you pump up the midtones a little bit along this center line, and I'll name this dodge. Then you click on this and invert the layer mask. Then I create another one, another curves adjustment layer, and I drop down the curves in order to amplify the shadows. I'll name this burn. Then I invert. Ctrl I to invert that. You press Ctrl I to invert that layer mask, or Command I. Then I'll group these. Ctrl G to group. Or what you do, you just you select them and click on this icon here to create a new group. Then I'll name this dodge and burn. Dodge and burn. That is my dodge and burn group, just like you can see. So now, in order to amplify our highlights, what we do, we are going to be working with a dodge and we use the brush tool for that method. You have to keep our opacity at 100 here. You keep the flow at around 3 is okay. And you get a soft round brush, you keep your hardness at 0. So now what we are going to do, we are going to add a black and white adjustment layer, and we kill the shadows. We kill the reds in order to amplify our highlights a little bit. So now that is going to help us to see our highlights. So you come to this dodge and you increase your diameter a little bit. You have to keep your diameter medium, you don't keep it small, because you have patches, and you keep your image to fit the screen so that you shape the light when you see everything about the image. So now I'm going to be brushing. Dodging. When you're doing dodge and burn, you have to make sure your image fits the screen. You don't zoom in a lot, because when you zoom in a lot, you disorganize the skin tones. So you have to make sure your image is at a point where you see the whole face. So now let's start dodging the highlights. I put this black and white adjustment layer to help me see my highlights very well, just like you can see. We dodge here the nose area, the cheekbones, the chin area. You have to dodge every point where you see the highlights popping, so that you amplify them a little bit. And you're going to do the same thing when we are burning to the shadows. So now, after doing that, let me show you the before and the after. That is how my image was, and this is what I've done. So now what we are going to do is we are going to burn. When you're burning, you have to switch off this black and white layer so that you can see your shadows very well. So what you do is you burn the shadows, just like you see I'm doing. The dark areas. Let's shape up the nose a little bit. I'll have to burn the eyebrows also, the eyebrows as well. You look for all the areas with the darkness, with darks, and you burn them to amplify the shades. So that is as simple as that. You don't do it a lot in order not to disorganize the skin tones. So this is before dodge and burn, and that is after dodge and burn. So what we do in order to reduce the effect a little bit, you reduce the opacity of the whole group, and you put it there, just like you can see. So the next thing I'm going to do is to whiten the eyes. Whitening the eyes, I'll put a hue saturation adjustment layer. I select reds here and I reduce the saturation a little bit. Yellows, I reduce the saturation also, and I invert that. I get the curves. I also get curves adjustment layer. I blow up the midtones, just like you can see. And I invert it. I put this to a group. Let me name it eyes and teeth. Whitening. I'll put a layer mask to that group. After putting a layer mask to the group, I'll use the brush tool. I'll put my flow back to 100. and I brush in the white parts of the eyes in order to remove the redness. You don't put it too much so that you don't make her plastic. You come to the teeth as well. You come to the teeth as well and you whiten them a little bit, just like you can see. Let me show you the before and the after. That is the before, this is the after. You can reduce the opacity in case the effect is so much. Let me first show you the before our image was edited and where we are now. So that is what we have right now. What we are going to do next is I'll add some color lookup in order to enhance my colors of the skin tones. I have a collection of them. Let me use number 3 here, and I reduce the opacity a little bit, just like you can see there. Show you the before and the after. Yes, this is the before, that is the after. Keep reducing it. I think 20 is okay for that purpose. So that is the before and the after of our image. So now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to press Alt Ctrl Shift E to lock my image, to lock my layers, and I go to Liquify. I go to Liquify. I want to shape up the face a little bit. What I do is I come here to the nose width, and I reduce the nose width a little bit. Then I come to the jawline and reduce the jawline a little bit. That is all I do for that. Then I come to the body and I shape it up. I get this tool, the forward warp tool. Try to shape it up so that my image is somehow neat. Yes, just like you can see. After doing that, I press OK. When you press OK, so I think you can see the before and the after of our image. Before we did Liquify, this is how it looked. And after we did Liquify, this is how it looked. This is how it looks. So what the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to remove the noise, the little bit of the noise that I'm left with. I come to filter, I come to camera raw filter. When I go to camera raw filter, I come to the details panel here, and I reduce the noise. Add up some luminance for noise reduction. 15 is enough for that, and I press OK. So this is our image. Let me show you a little bit of the before and the after. This is the before, and that is the after. So what I do now I save my image. I come to File and I save, or you press Ctrl S. So I'm going to export my image from Capture One. When you come to Capture One, you'll find that you have your PSD format has already come to this timeline, and you can export it. In order to export it, you right click, you click on Export Variants. You select your destination. Mine is already there. Quality, you can put it to 100. 80 to 100 is okay. Resolution 75 is also okay. Color profile, I don't advise you to use Adobe RGB because most devices use sRGB as their color profile. So what you do next is you press Export. So that is how I export my images. So this is our before of the image, just like you can see, and this is our after. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. My name is Robert SK for Drimax School of Photography, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe, and if you've liked this video, give it a thumbs up and turn on the notification icon in order not to miss out on the future tutorials. Every week I'll be dropping new videos, so don't miss out.